Welcome back to the Donnas pod. This is the season 1 finale. I know, super sad, but we have our very first guest to dissect MCR's Black Parade tour and the lore behind it. Please give 3 cheers for Trevor Deley. Trevor.
Hello.
Delio. That's what your last name is just Delio to me now.
There it is. Mr. Delio is my alter ego, but that's a secret, so don't tell anyone.
Okay, yeah, we won't. We'll definitely cut that out and not include it in this episode at all.
Thanks, yeah.
I have brought you to the Prima Donnas podcast because I have been following you for a while, and you are very smart. You're very smart, and you have very cool theories, which have come true, which we'll talk about the MCR lore and fandom, and I'm just so excited to talk to you. But before we get into the MCR stuff, I kind of want to get to know you a little bit more. And I want to know how you got started with social media.
Cool. Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here. And thank you for mistaking my unhealthy obsession with being intelligent. That's really kind of you to say that.
Yeah, of course.
But my backstory is funny. About during the pandemic, I was restoring my great grandma's piano, and I was just posting them on my personal Instagram, and a friend of mine was like, "You ever heard of this crazy little thing called TikTok?" And they're like, "I think people would really dig these piano restoration videos." And I was like, well, she's like 4 or 5 years younger than me. And so, I was listening to the youths of the time, and I thought, why not? So I threw them up there, got like tens of views, which I was pretty excited about. But over time, one random person just stumbled across, and they're like, why do you kind of look like Gerard Way? And
floodgates opened.
Well, because I was like full on emo kid in high school. I was in like a ska punk band, like part of the music scene in the city I'm in. And I used to get that all the time. But, I'm sure if you all remember being emo in the 2000s, it was more of an insult people hurled at me than, a badge of honor.
Yep.
But this time around, I thought it was hilarious because I'm in my 30s and I'm like, that's crazy that people still see that. And so I just posted like old pictures of me from high school. Like, yeah, I used to get that a lot. Like, here's some old pictures of me from my emo days. And that like took off. And people in the comments of that video were like, oh, please, can you dress up like him? And, it was the tail end of the pandemic. I had nothing going on. So I was like, here we go.
Buckle up, kids. You are not ready.
Exactly. So here we are, like 2.5 years into this wild side quest.
I often wonder with people who strikingly resemble another person when it comes to making internet content. Do you feel like you're kind of trapped in this box of Gerard Way where you have to kind of like stay in it? Not to stay relevant, but to just feel like you're including something?
For sure, right? I'm sure like you know what your niche is and like what videos perform better and things like that. So I know if I like slap on the old costume and some makeup, those do numbers. But I think something nice about it is like I've loved My Chemical Romance since I was a teenager. Like I was in Catholic school, and so when I saw the Helena music video, just the imagery of it all like really opened me up to like expressing myself, just like seeing his crazy facial expressions and all that. And so as a side effect, it's connected me in with the MCR community I never could connect with as a teenager, because all my friends were like metalheads and like, that band sucks. Like the lead singer looks like a girl. And I was like, I love him.
He's the best, actually.
Yeah. And so, but now as an adult, getting to like reconnect with all these people and like really talk about the fandom and enjoy this band on a deeper level has been like really wonderful for me, even though, yeah, like I do know that, certain kinds of videos, you're kind of stuck with it once you kind of like take off for a niche, so it's a double-edged sword.
It kind of propels you though, I guess, to find new people as well that maybe not be in that exact fandom.
Yeah, exactly. And finding like cool side things you can do that associate with your interests. Like being on this podcast, like we never would have become mutuals on the internet if I hadn't done all that stuff. And,
that's true.
Like, you're more like pop punk, emo culture adjacent. And like you talk about a lot of different bands. And I've seen your like cool videos where you're eating nachos with people and interviewing bands and stuff like that. So it is cool. You get to kind of like branch out a little bit, and that's always really, really fun. So
yeah, being uncool in high school actually just makes you so much cooler in adult life. Between like the emo resurgence and like video games and anime being super mainstream now, it's kind of like, see, I fucking told y'all. I was there day one, and you said, no, that's stupid.
Man,
And
if
look at y'all now.
It's so true. Like, if I told you my best kept secret in middle school was every day I would come home and I'd eat like a chocolate pudding cup and watch Sakura Card Captor, and it was my favorite. Like the dopamine in my brain was insane. It was my favorite show. And I told no one about it because I was like so ashamed of it. You know what I mean?
That was the best. Mine was Sailor Moon. Cardcaptor Sakura was a tight second, but it was definitely Sailor Moon for my anime gateway.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that was iconic.
I had the traditional Pokemon route. That's what I did.
That's a banger too, though.
I have a core memory of the first time Pokemon aired, and like the bright colors and like the big adventure. It was like, to the child brain, it was insane. Like I still remember sitting in that living room the first time it came on and like my pupils dilating, you know? Pokemon was huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesse and James too, like their relationship, the hair, the costumes, like they really took things to the limit. Like there's that one episode that got taken down where they have like, doesn't he cross dress?
Yeah, he cross dresses, and then the breastplate he's wearing is like inflatable.
Yeah.
I know, it was like surprisingly progressive. Like a lot of those shows where there was like small political elements to it that were ahead of their time. Like I have a friend who's really into the SpongeBob musical because, and I don't know anything about it, but because again, like for the time, like it was a pretty radical portrayal of like masculinity in the early 2000s and like male friendship between SpongeBob and Patrick. And so there was a lot to it that was going on, I think, underneath it, you know, that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Everything I know about the SpongeBob musical has been against my will, all because of Ariana Grande.
I know, that was me too. That was me too. And I saw my friend posting, like obsessed with it. And I was like, okay, you got to tell me. Like, you got to tell me what's the inside story. What am I missing here? And she wrote me this like giant essay, and I was like, okay, all right, I'll watch it.
Now I know. Now I fucking know. Okay, now for the stuff that everybody's been waiting for. We're gonna get into it. Did you get tickets for the MCR Black Parade tour, and where?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for asking that first, so I can keep my tinfoil hat off a little bit longer before we.
We'll get into it. I can't fucking wait.
Yeah. Unfortunately, on the sale day, I tried for multiple cities, and for me to justify the cost of traveling, I really wanted the pit experience. And so I knew going in, I was prepared to disappoint. Didn't get any tickets. I had friends who like panic bought extra tickets, and so I've had a couple friends I've been able to buy their extra ticket, and so I know I'll see the show at least in Boston and maybe Toronto as well. But I'm still going to be watching the resellers for a reasonable pit ticket somewhere if I can.
Reasonable pit ticket? I don't think that exists. If you find a reasonable pit ticket, that's amazing.
Yeah, if I find a reasonable pit ticket, you know I've done terrible things to acquire it. You should
we will not speak about it.
Yeah.
You had some theories about this tour before it was even out and announced and into the world. Can you tell us the ones that you got correct?
Yeah. So a quick timeline. It all started because for a long time I was thinking about this one clip from the making of the Welcome to the Black Parade music video where Gerard Way is talking about the backdrop with the City of the Damned. And it's like a 7-second clip where he's like, oh yeah, like this backdrop was inspired by the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Metropolis, these German expressionist films, two of my favorite films of all time. And it just cuts to like Frank Gehry doing something silly. And like, it just like was rattling around in my brain because I'd gotten like really into World War I for a while. And then a friend of mine who writes about music for his career was also into it at the same time. So we started talking about this stuff, and I started exploring the German expressionist art movement after World War I, and those two films are huge in it. And if you watch them, like they were major inspirations on people like Tim Burton. I always forget his name, the guy who directed Nightmare Before Christmas, which Tim Burton presented, and that's like a whole thing. You know, people. They're like, it's like Tim Burton presents A Nightmare Before Christmas. So like German expressionism was huge aesthetic influence on that. And if you watch the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, it looks like it could be a Black Parade music video, right? And so I was just exploring all those ideas, and it got me down the rabbit hole of other influences and like talking to this friend. And so we had been talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall, which Gerard Way is cited as a major influence on the Black Parade. And when I saw that first picture they posted with like the red, Slavic styled writing, looks like it could be, a lot of people saying it looks Russian or like Eastern European, but it ended up being like a specifically designed font that someone made just for them. Like it's not an actual,
of course it is,
language that exists. I knew it right away. I was like, they're going to be extending the themes that they explored in the wall, but the other half that they never looked into, because there's a lot of like really important themes in the wall about like fame and the relationship that the audience has to rock stars and how isolating and traumatic fame can be. But then there's this other theme which is like very political, and it's about how political violence and like the violence of fascist Germany in World War II creates these cycles in society that kind of repeat themselves. And it essentially does that by showing Pink, the character in the wall, going through their life and experiencing these traumatic things, but then becoming a rock star and asking the question, doesn't the relationship between the rock star and the audience look eerily similar to the relationship between a dictator and the masses? Like that's really the thing, two things they're trying to like hold up to each other. For a lot of reasons, I don't want to just cut me off if I start going too deep down the
I could
rabbit
listen
hole.
to you talk about this forever, and I'm going to.
Okay.
I will not stop you. I will encourage you.
I do want to ask, do you have like a background in art or art history or anything like that? Because I watched those videos and both of us, Em and I, have a background in the arts.
Whoa.
And you spoke quite well. Okay. I'm not speaking quite well. But you did a really good job at talking about the German Expressionist movement.
Wow.
And it just really surprised me, actually.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Mishka. Not directly. Like I studied the sciences, and I was actually a microbiologist until the 2015 US election. And I was following the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which when Fall Out Boy added that to their version of We Didn't Start the Fire, it's like in the lyrics, they mention it by name. I was like, hell yeah.
They know what's up.
Because again, I was like in 2014, 2015, I was like an insane person talking about it. Everyone's like, what is that? What are you talking about? And then, a few months later it blew up. And then a few years later, Fall Out Boy's putting it into their songs or whatever. But I switched fields from being a microbiologist to studying political analytics. I was a software developer at the time, and I got into it's an interdisciplinary PhD in cultural studies and engineering. And so that's where I really started reading more about these theories and kind of exploring the arts like later on in life. So I love it though, because I think it's so important. And me 10 years ago wouldn't have gotten any of this, right? I was like in the sciences and thought I knew everything. And then when I started looking at this, I was like, oh my God, this is really important stuff for people to know. Like there's so much important symbolism and connection and undercurrents that art creates in society and touches everything. And I was like, I just ignored that in my early 20s. And so it means a lot that people who like actually studied this stuff, that I did an okay job. So I appreciate that.
No, I think you were really effective. Yeah, it was good.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
When you mentioned the chiaroscuro, I was like, dung, art history 101.
100%.
It was so crazy how those memories came flooding back. And I was like, oh my God, okay, we're here. We're in lecture.
Wow.
We did that.
Okay. That's really good to hear.
You actually mentioned it. And I want to issue a formal apology, because when I saw my chem when we were Young Fest the second year, I made a comment saying that their stage presence was boring because of the lighting. I was like, because I saw it at face value, I'm issuing an apology. I am sorry, because you were right. It was meant to be the chiaroscuro lighting, and I bashed it because I did not see the vision, and now I see the vision, and I am sorry.
I will say that is really noble of you to say that, but I want to validate your initial opinion too, right? Like it was a minimalist set, and so for concert goers who are used to like big productions, or like compared to what we saw with Fall Out Boy with all these moving parts and amazing like physical aspects, like it was a very minimalist set. And so I could definitely understand, people finding it underwhelming. Just again, I think because I had been reading about German Expressionism, I was like, it was like in my special interest, right? And so I was excited about it, but I totally understand like people being like, no, that wasn't for me. Like I totally understand that.
It just seemed like they were building this huge hype around my chem performing the Black Parade in entirety again. So we kind of like built it up in our heads of what we thought it was going to be. And then when I saw it, I was just like, oh,
right. Yeah.
that's
and
it.
That's so valid, right? And when you think about how theatrical the original tour was, coming out on a gurney, all these costumes, like they had pyro in the original tour, like all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like I totally understand the disappointment, especially again with our normal expectations of what we want from a live show these days. Like that's totally valid.
Thank you for validating me. That I will take that to heart.
Of course.
While we're talking about when we were young performances, I wanted to go back to their first year doing it when they had their revenge era with the special effects makeup. For anyone who didn't see, they had themselves look like elderly versions of themselves during that time. I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about how nostalgia can have negative effects and how it relates to this costume.
Wow, it's like it's an alley oop. You're like setting me up here for like a home run. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I'll caveat by saying like this is just my interpretation of their performance, right? Like, it could mean a whole bunch of different things, but this is just what I saw in it. Like that first night, they're dressed up as their older selves, performing in their revenge outfits, and to me, that's a message about like, as you mentioned, with the emo revival or emo renaissance, depending on how pretentious you want to be about it. There is a lot of opportunity for people to make cash grabs based off of nostalgia. And I think what happens a lot in the arts is people poo-poo a nostalgia. They're like, there's like that South Park episode about member berries, and they're like these weird parasites that attach to your brain, and like, remember this, remember that. They're making a point statement like, oh, nostalgia is stupid and bad. But the reality is nostalgia has a lot of positive psychological effects on us. There's a lot of like research about it that shows it helps us reconstruct our identities when we're going through a lot of challenges, like a personal nostalgia. We reflect on our own life, our autobiography, and it helps remind us like who we are, which is important to do sometimes, especially if life's been hard lately. It regulates our emotions, and it has a lot of like really positive psychological effects. So nostalgia on its own, in a personal sense, isn't necessarily bad. Like it's also a culturally universal phenomenon. It happens in every single culture, no matter the language, no matter how isolated they've been from the rest of the world. Nostalgia is there, and it's really rare for things like that to be universal and cross-cultural. So it's powerful, and it's an important part of being human. But I think the issue is when it gets appropriated by other people. And so going back to that idea of the emo nostalgia, the risk is that, some cartoonishly evil people, we'll just pretend, are in a boardroom twiddling their fingers and saying, how do we make money off of, this nostalgia? And I think to me, that was what that outfit was a statement of. It was like, it's so easy just to like, instead of making new things or growing or developing or addressing society where it is to get comfortable and just remember the past and have these companies kind of like siphon our money off of us and keep us complacent. That was the message I took away. I don't know if that's what they were going for again, but that was my interpretation, and I think the second night was also related. That's why I think they were connected and why it really was a message about nostalgia, but I'll leave that for a bit later if we want to get into it.
I think going into my research of My Chemical Romance and the lore and just even the past, their own tour, how all of Gerard's costumes meant something or was related to something. Everything is related in some way, and I think that's amazing. He's such a great world builder. Like, he doesn't just do things for the sake of doing them, he does it with a purpose. But with nostalgia, I think you're right, and I think we have the tendency to kind of romanticize the past and only hang on to the good memories of what we thought was going on. But in reality, there were a lot of shitty things that were happening at the same time too.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so natural to turn to simpler times, I guess, again, to regulate our own emotions, to reform our sense of identity in the present. But I think as long as we remember that it's good to remember the past and the good things in the past, but for the present, right? Not to just want to go back. I think that's the important line,
Yeah, definitely kind of like nostalgia is something that we almost kind of allow ourselves to indulge in. But, the commercialism of music and of art has kind of allowed these men in the boardroom twiddling their thumbs, as you said earlier, has allowed them to kind of capitalize on that. And there's this like there's this feeling of longing that comes along with nostalgia, I think. And I find that I agree with you in the sense that like nostalgia is good, but having that longing feeling or really diving into it too deep can maybe be dangerous.
I agree completely. Yeah. Like a form of escapism, or what you said reminded me of the original definition. Nostalgia, I think it was the 1700s. It was a Swedish doctor who diagnosed it as a medical illness. He did
Add that to the list of the things I got.
Nostalgia sickness for sure. But the words he used were a homesickness for the past, like feeling homesick for the past. And yeah, just what you said, that sense of longing, right? And if we dive too deep in that, I just really agree with what you said there. I think that's so true.
It stunts growth, and I think it can be applied to these bands who were very popular in that emo, third wave emo, whatever wave, making new music. I think a lot of people, like I was, again, one of those people when Fall Out Boy was coming back. I was kind of hoping for a Under the Cork Tree version 2, you know? And yeah, because that was just like, to me, that was everything. But hearing what they have made now, it's like there's no way that they could make that, because where they are in their lives and where I am in my life, it's just not the same. And I'm glad that I was let down, in quotation marks, by that, because it made for such a better evolution. And the cash grab thing is so very real. I mean, I talked to Tyson from All American Rejects, and he was kind of saying the same thing, how some people in these bands are just cash and checks, and it's hard to differentiate who's in it for the right reasons or not.
Yeah.
But having this idea of your favorite band and wanting them to stay in that position for the entirety of their career is just not, it's not feasible, and it's not going to help them in the long run. It's not sustainable.
Looking for a gift for the elder emo on your Christmas list? I've got you covered. Come see me and Senior at the Toronto Night Market, November 23rd at 415 King Street West. I will have ornaments, sweaters, and custom jackets for you to take home. Can't make it out? Shop online at senior.com. SCENEIOR.com.
I watched that interview you did with All American Rejects. I thought it was really great. And just to add to your point, letting them grow as artists too, instead of trying to keep them in that box. I think that was something you talked about with them that I thought was really poignant.
Yeah, because like a lot of these bands already have the legacy, and I feel like some of them decide that they need to kind of hang on to that with dear life in order to be successful, but you have to be able to take that chance to try something new, you know, even if the old fans won't be the same. I mean, I think of it in like Bring Me the Horizon sense. Bring Me the Horizon's discography is so vast and diverse and different, and some people hate their new stuff, some people love their new stuff, and vice versa. But I think they're a great example of how you need to be able to adapt and to try new things authentically, not just because, oh fuck, we got to do something, what do we do here, we do this. No, it's like they're going avenues that they never thought were maybe possible or wanted to explore, but just felt like they were confined in that box.
I think that's such a great example. And, you know, their collaboration with like Aurora.
Oh my God, right? So good.
Who would have seen that coming, you know? And like just an example of continuing to grow the genre and like try new things and push boundaries. I think you're so right about that.
One thing I find really interesting, so Trevor, just so you know, I'm the pop girly of the two of us.
Oh, okay, good.
And so I find it interesting because it almost sounds as if like the audience for, you know, emo scene music, this kind of genre we're talking about, there's this kind of stronger sense of like, I want the band to stay the way they were at a certain point in time or history, which I find interesting because, you know, we look to the pop realm and it's all about reinvention, right? Madonna, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, like how many eras have these people had? And it's always been embraced with such vigor. People got very excited about a new era, right? And that, I would say, is arguably still the same formula as today.
Yeah. That's a brilliant point. Like, why is that? Why? It almost seems like there's a weird conservatism in art in certain parts of the emo community, like of wanting it to stay the same when, yeah, pop, which I think they make so many artistic connections for people on such a massive scale, and that is through exactly what you're saying, reinvention. So why is that? Why are we so resistant to that in the emo community? I think that's a brilliant question. I like that a lot. I don't know if I have an answer, but you've made me think a lot. I'm gonna be thinking about that for sure, Mishka.
Hey, I'm just an observer. That's all I'm saying. I'm just an observer.
It's true though. I never actually thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right. Everybody has to reinvent themselves to stay relevant and to keep their career going.
Well, and
but
like
in the
you
emo
said
scene,
earlier,
we're like, yeah,
it's like also growth, right? Like maybe I think back to when I was in my early 20s, my late teen years, and I personally hadn't really done much growth or, evolution as a human being. And so that wasn't something I valued. And especially in the pop realm of things, that's one of those things where like the consumerism of it all really drives that like image of the pop star, right?
Interesting. Yeah, there's like so many different, because I guess one way you could look at it is you say, well, maybe that's just where the money goes, right? Like in pop, reinvention is what sells tickets, but in rock music or emo music, it's playing the greatest hits. I think that's surface level, but maybe there's something deeper going on culturally there as well. Because like I think it'd be unfair to pop just to chalk it all up to money, because there are so many like brilliant creative people that work in pop music. Like even just, I was telling you earlier, my brother studied sound engineering, and I remember he's a big metalhead, and never liked pop music. But when he studied sound engineering and they like took apart like a Katy Perry song, he came home and he's like, I think that changed my mind a little bit about pop music and like the artistry that really goes into it. And, you think about someone like Jack Antonoff, like behind the scenes producing people like Taylor Swift and Sabrina Carpenter. I remember he did this breakdown of like, the string arrangement in Espresso. I think I might get that wrong, but like he's like, no one hears this, but it's important to do this because it's important to make good art. And I was like, wow,
right? It's so true.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna think about that, Mishka. There's a lot there. There's a lot to think about there. That's really cool.
And the themes of both genres are very similar. Heartbreak, hating your hometown.
Yup.
Maybe not so much like reinventing yourself, but dealing with these tough emotions, I feel like, are dealt with differently in both genres. So, and the fans are kind of skewed in a way because I feel like a lot of people would think that pop is mainly or predominantly female, but in the scene, I feel like in emo music, it's also predominantly female. Especially in like the My Chemical Romance Fall Out Boy spheres, right? Like a lot of the people going to shows are femme presenting or identify as female. So it's like, okay, where's the stagnation happening? Like, why is it the way that it is? So if anybody knows, please let us know.
Be interesting. Yeah. Whereas other genres, like a lot of metalheads seems to be a lot of dudes, a lot of metal dudes, and, they like their Guns N' Roses and Metallica, and
then that's it. You stray away from the path and you're dead to me.
No, but I'm sure there's something else going on. It's, half joking there about metalhead dudes, but, we all know one of those guys,
We absolutely, we can picture him. Do you bring it to a meme? Have you seen the meme where it's the the wedge of cheese with like the long black hairs coming out of it?
No.
No. What?
Okay, never mind. But it's like every metalhead looks like this.
Oh my god.
I'll find it and we'll put it in the video so that everyone can see. But.
Yeah, pull that up so we can all. But the things that block of cheese says are like, yeah, there's no like good music after 1970, like.
Well, the discourse with the Download Festival happening right now, because Sleep Token is one of the main headlining bands, and it's a polarizing opinion in the scene. Like some people are like, oh my God, finally Sleep Token has got here. We did it. And then the other side is like, Sleep Token's not even metal, man. Like, what are they doing here? And it's like, why can't we just be happy?
That's wild to me. I'm not in, my algorithm is not showing me that side of it. Cause like to me, Sleep Token is the golden goose of metal right now.
Yeah, some people
Wow.
hate it because they're not as
Right.
you know, it's not that kind of metal.
Yeah.
It has metal elements, but it's still very melodic.
Right. Right.
And you know, they wear costumes, so obviously they're stupid and lame.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, this isn't all
Unless
that
they're
remains
Kiss.
from 2006. Unless
Honestly,
they're Kiss.
It throws back to a previous episode that we had where we spoke about the idea of the poser and gatekeeping of culture, specifically music culture. And we were talking about at the time the controversy of band merch and whether or not you should wear band merch for the band you're seeing and things like that. Yeah, it just throws back to that interesting gatekeeping of it all.
That is interesting. I saw I think one of your shorts from that, and I remember I popped into the comments so fast, and it was a war zone down there.
It has 7 million views.
People were like,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah,
really-
the video.
Yeah.
For the video, yes.
yeah, and people could not. They were fighting each other over that one, whether or not to wear the T-shirt to the show. Which I think that's interesting. To your point, like to me, gatekeeping is always so rooted in perspective and experience. Because in my view, perspective is rooted in our experience and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, everyone's a poser to somebody, but then I think the deeper level is we have to like try to get underneath that and say, okay, well, if we try to have some empathy for people's experiences outside our own, what are the elements that attract people to a subgenre or to a music scene? What does that tell us about that kind of music? And to me, that, because I don't know, gatekeeping, I hate it, but sometimes it's important, right? Like, especially in punk, like that was my scene as a teenager, ska punk specifically. So like goofy punk or whatever. I loved it. I loved it. And yeah, like I heard this really interesting story because I went to the punk rock museum in Las Vegas, and I always forget his name because I wasn't a big Goldfinger fan. But the cool thing about the punk rock museum is the musicians come by and like give you a tour and like tell you about like, oh, I remember when so and so made this T-shirt. I was at that show in this like dive bar, and they're telling about the scene. And he told this really interesting story I'd never heard before, that like the early California punk scene was just like a bunch of like gender diverse and like ethnically diverse weirdos doing performance art about how society kind of sucked, and it was awesome. And then the government got scared of punks. This was his story. I've tried to look it up. I can't find it. So this is just me repeating his story. But the government made a public service announcement being like, watch out for punks. And it had that like stereotypical, like buff white dude with like the mohawk throwing a brick through a window. And then he says what happened is a bunch of angry white dudes saw that public service announcement and said, I think I'd like to be a punk rocker. And they flooded the scene. And his story was that was how hardcore punk started, of like this mega aggro kind of emotional undertone to it that was dominated by like basically the people who bullied the old punk rock scene in California in high school, now being like, yeah, we're punk rock too. And it blew my mind. It really blew my mind. But again, so just to the point of like, sometimes it's important to gatekeep because certain musical spaces are created by and for people who don't fit in, because society doesn't have a place for them. And so sometimes gatekeeping is really important. And like, again, when I'm getting up on my soapbox here, but like when a musical space is created in that sense, right? The idea of a poser, it's because, well, certain music spaces are for people because they don't have anywhere else. And that's really important to maintain.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and that's like, as someone from the LGBT community, gatekeeping is a tool utilized to protect safe spaces. And I feel like, music can be included in that to a degree, depending on the context. So, yeah, I totally agree with you.
100%. Yeah.
You can't gatekeep a band that has over 1 million streams on Spotify, though. I'm so sorry,
true.
guys. You cannot gatekeep Slipknot. If they have merch in H&M, you cannot gatekeep the band. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Hot take, but
bringing it back to the MCR of it all.
Oh yeah, that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
We're here for many reasons, but I just wanted to bring it back to it so that I keep myself on track. Paper Kingdom
Oh, yeah.
is kind of like the scrapped fifth concept album that MCR had floating around that was about a support group of families who had lost their children. And they have also released this trailer for the tour, which I want to get into kind of. That's kind of where I'm going with this. But I also found a leaked Reddit track list of the Paper Kingdom song titles. Now, this could be real, this could be fake, but it's all fun and games here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're going to pretend that it's real. And two of the names that stood out to me were Operation Day and Dogs, because of what MCR has posted with the trailer and that shot of the Doberman. So I wanted to get maybe your thoughts on that. Maybe tell me what Moat is as well.
Cool. Yeah, let me just grab my tinfoil hat and put it on.
We're ready.
Just so the audience knows, we're in conspiracy zone right now. So everything after
Perfect.
this point is pure speculation. Yeah, and people have also been connecting, just to add your point, at the first night at When We Were Young, Gerard asked everyone to bark like dogs.
Yes.
And so people think that might be related.
Well, you didn't tell me about that.
Yeah, he's like, everyone give me your best dog impression. So I don't know, could just be, one of his many quirks, but maybe there's a deeper meaning to it as well. But to the Paper Kingdoms, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot too. And, in interviews, Gerard Way has said that the concept was abandoned just because it was too dark at the time. And the track list is interesting because I think we have to treat it in the time it was released in, so 2014. Do I think that they've been planning this, whatever we're in for coming up next since then? No. But do I think that there's a way that they're using what's going on right now to set up a reworking of old music into an album that is relevant? Yes.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you my conspiracy theory about how that's going to work. So it all goes back to The Wall, which we were discussing earlier. And if we look at the comparisons between The Wall concept album 1979 and it being a huge inspiration on the Black Parade, a lot of the themes I think were explored in the original Black Parade were more about the way fame can be traumatic. And an example of that is in The Wall. There's a song called In the Flesh, which has 2 tracks for it on the double album of The Wall. The first one is just kind of like about going to a rock show. And the second one, which is really important, and it's featured in the 1982 movie adaptation of The Wall, shows a really harrowing scene where Pink, the main character, has a drug-induced hallucination during a concert that they're a fascist dictator at a rally. And the first song on the Black Parade, The End, is a direct musical homage to In the Flesh. So they're like intimately connected. So to me, what that tells us is that song is really important to the band. And, when you think about like their music video for Ghost of You as an anti-war statement, it can make sense that, the themes in that movie against cycles of violence and especially against fascism in this current political moment and authoritarian leaders would be an easy connection to make in my mind. But none of that was explicitly explored, like the political aspect of it, right? It was a record about death. And really all they took from The Wall in the first run through was the idea that it was a concept album and about the relationship of fame between the rock star and the audience. So my conspiracy theory is what they're doing now is they're digging into the deeper influences from The Wall, where it is a lot more political. And that was why when I first saw that image with the red text on it, I was like, oh, this is The Wall 2.0. Like, it's happening now. In this political moment, everything going on, it would be the perfect time for them to do this. We already know they love that album. We know they watch a lot of movies, so presumably the movie adaptation of the album was also a huge influence on the band. And so that was how I made that first connection. And I just happened to be right. Like, I'm not magical or anything. I could have been so wrong. People are like, that guy's nuts. I am nuts. It's true. But I think that's what's setting it up. So if we go into that, right, and from the trailers that we've seen, this is so fun. Just thank you for letting me yap about this.
Yeah, no, I don't even want to interrupt you with my active listening. I'm trying to just shut up so you can keep going.
If my ears start smoking, just stop me, okay? But that first trailer, especially when we see them dressed in all this fascist imagery, it's in this really nice palace, and again, making other connections to influences like Metropolis. The important thing about Metropolis is the director used all these like really grandiose buildings on set to portray the power of the state. And then the director of that movie was actually approached by the Nazi regime, by Joseph Goebbels, to be hired by the Nazis after he made that movie, and he fled the country. He did the right thing. He got out. But like, just to talk to how architecture is really important to not just criticizing authoritarianism, but to fascists themselves and projecting their power. And so when we think about like the themes in this trailer, right, how they're using this grand high architecture, the costuming of it all, to me, that all points to exploring these deeper political themes on the wall. Now, and again, I say this, I really think there's an album coming, because knowing everything about this band, I don't think they're a band that would approach such heavy themes in such an important political moment just for a cash grab tour. And if they do, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right?
After all this, I don't think so. Like, really, guys, all this hype for, I don't think they're going to do it either.
I can't see it. So to me, it means there must be something coming. And then the last thing I'll say about this, because I feel like I'm getting into rambling territory, but it's that if they create this world for us that is set in this dystopian dictatorship future, that would be the perfect backdrop for a fictional world event where a bunch of parents could lose their children in terrible and traumatic ways, which would set up the release for Paper Kingdoms, the concept for it. And to me, that would be such a poignant message right now, as, many people in society are making questionable choices about their political alignments and beliefs, to like warn us about what the consequences are if we don't kind of smarten up. And I think, that, like, if they are the artists I think they are, that's exactly the role art should be playing in this current cultural climate, to just like remind us of the past in an entertaining way where like the average person won't and doesn't have to think about it this deep. But I already see it. People just discussing the potential plot line of this album are already dealing with complex political themes of like, what is a dictator? And like, what does this mean? Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? And so even though it's entertainment, it's getting people to think about the politics behind it all and the history behind it all without having them to sit in a lecture or anything like that. And the last thing, what is moat? A lot of people are saying it's an acronym and things like that. I think purely from the linguistic cue in the post, it's a place, it's a location. We don't know what it stands for. We don't know what it means. It might be like a detention camp that the band is coming back from. But really, all I know is that it's a place. And I think everyone else speculating about other stuff, it's really fun and really awesome, but I don't think we have enough evidence to go beyond that. Okay, thank you.
It is so intriguing and insightful. I think you're right in the sense that they're kind of trying to like not spoon feed us what's kind of happening in the world, but spoon feed some of us and maybe some fans that are on the fence about certain things or don't necessarily have an understanding, or if they're maybe not have their frontal lobe developed, or any of these factors that could be a part of it. But I do think they are trying to mirror real life events and occurrences. And I want to know if you think that this is going to be kind of like their grand finale of the band, or if you think that this is just another stepping stone. Because they could kind of keep it going for as long as they want, but this would honestly be a perfect little time to wrap it up with a bow and just say, here you go, guys.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, unlike Fall Out Boy, I don't have a crystal ball that can see into the past. They're seasoned to the past. I've never thought about that. Anyways, I can't see into the future, so I don't know. But I do think what is happening right now with this is, again, with all these themes of nostalgia and what's going on right now, I think I could see it as a really incredible way to try and break away from the legacy of the Black Parade. It's their best-selling record of all time. And I can imagine that any artist that has to live in the shadow of their past work probably dreams of surpassing it or moving away from it or trying new things. And so I really think that this is a really brilliant way of getting everyone on board, because it's like, oh, you like the Black Parade? That's the carrot. And then there's with the stick, they're like, okay, by the way, think about politics a little bit and here's some new music. And we'll see if it works out and how, if it is new music, how well it performs. But I think it's a really creative approach to it if that's what's going on.
I appreciate that. What is your favorite MCR album while we're on the topic? If you say Black Parade, you're fired. No.
Yeah. If I want to be cool, I'll be like, it's not an album, but Conventional Weapons is really underrated,
I knew you were going to fucking say Conventional Weapons.
But the real answer is it's Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, because the Helena music video is really what got me into this whole thing. And It changed me as a person, as a teenager. I think it actually affected my emotional trajectory in a really positive way, and I don't think I would be the person I am if I hadn't, been at that place in my life in Catholic school and seen them in this makeup and in these costumes and just like with these amazing emotive performance styles in a church. Like all of that combined just blew my little Catholic mind and helped me break out of so many things that were just like felt like they were weighing me down at the time,
Mm-hmm. That was the right answer. So thank you. Thank you for playing.
You dressed. That's what you dressed as. So,
well, it's mine as well because I actually read their biography. I think Tom Bryant is the author. I actually saw it, the best story. I was going at Value Village and I was going through the book section, and it was one of the books that wasn't in the shelf. It was face up. It was like it was staring me in the face. Like it knew that day that I was coming into Value Village. I think it's called All That It Seems, and it talks about their turmoil in writing this album and how much actual physical pain and suffering it took to get this album out and together. And that's kind of why Danger Days was such a departure from all that kind of stuff, because they're like, fuck it, no, we've done the dark stuff. Let's make this shit a little happier. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Ooh,
and then
wow.
Writing the Black Parade in the Paramore mansion or theater that was literally haunted.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if you know anything about that.
I mean, I have a detailed understanding of the floor layout because for a brief time I became obsessed with 3D modeling the Paramore mansion from pictures. But that's a whole nother, you'll have to have me back on for that one. But I know I don't know anything specific about the ghosts. I wish I could tell you some fun ghost stories.
Well, because in my research, I heard that Mikey actually like very temporarily left the band because of something that occurred during the writing process with this haunted place.
Oh.
But that's all I heard. So I don't know if is that true? Is that just hearsay? Is it tinfoil hat?
It's a good question. I don't know if that's official from the band, or I couldn't confirm or deny, but I've heard that story as well. Or other ones like Frank slept in the highest tower in the room, and Gerard's room was really haunted, and that they almost gave up on the record. But then there's a story that Gerard walked by the room and heard like Ray Toro all alone, just kind of like sadly playing the guitar. And then he decided, like, no, we have to finish this record because Ray Toro is such a beautiful soul.
Yeah, we cannot tarnish Ray Toro.
We can't. He's too pure for this world. But so there's amazing stories like that, yeah, in the fandom of what actually happened in that mansion, though. Only the band really knows.
Interesting. They should write a tell-all.
A tell-all, I know.
I mean, it's probably in the book. I don't remember because I don't remember things. But I do have it. Maybe I should reread it.
Yeah, who knows? If you find anything interesting, send it my way. I'd love to know. Yeah,
I will. To give a nice little end cap to this episode, I have 3 fun little trivia questions.
Oh no.
for you. I don't think they're that hard, but we'll see. Okay.
I'm ready.
Question number 1. Who designed the costumes for the Black Parade?
Oh, I can't remember her name, but she's the same one that did all of Tim Burton's costumings for like Edward Scissorhands. What's her name again?
Colleen Atwood.
Colleen Atwood. Oh man, take my MCR card away. I'm cooked.
No, because you knew. You had an inkling.
I'm just bad with names. Let's just chalk it up to that. Okay, I'm ready. All right.
What music video gave the band the most injuries?
Oh, it's Famous Last Words.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I think Rob got like 2nd or 3rd degree burns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And Frank tackled Gerard or something, so he got injured as well.
And like hit his tendon. Like
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and then the last one. Which famous podcaster is related to the Way brothers?
Oh, it's Joe Rogan. He's his cousin. They're cousins.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Super weird, right?
That was weird to find out. I was like, huh. But it sounds like they don't know each other. Like they've never actually met each other.
Yeah, I think so. I saw a clip of, because I Googled that. I was like, really? And then I saw a clip of Joe Rogan being asked about it. And he's like, no, like I've never met them or anything.
I would, like, do you think he's reached out?
Maybe.
Like to be like, hey guys, you want to come on? Do you think they would?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they would. I think they'd be like, no, it's okay.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't fit with their normal fan base. But there's it's a whole other thing, but I could see them wanting to talk to young men and trying to help them out a little bit, and knowing that that's Joe Rogan's audience, like I wouldn't put it past them just to try to, you know, get people thinking about things, you know.
It's true. Mishka, what were you going to say?
I have one question to add to the trivia.
Okay, go ahead.
Mostly because I'm just honestly curious about like the story behind this. The song "Sister to Sleep" from the Freddy vs. Jason motion picture soundtrack that was never released but was performed live a few times. Do you know anything about this?
Yes. So it's like the holy grail of the deep trenches of MCR fandom, right? Is people have like 3-pixel videos of it being sung live and obsess over it, right? They're like, what are the words? You know, what's the song about? And people, you know, there's theories that there's like secret demo recordings of it somewhere, and people are always kind of like searching for it, you know. But to date, yeah, I don't think there's ever been a proper recording found of it. So it is really one of those mythical songs out there.
Lost media.
Lost
Interesting.
media.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it's like a licensing issue, or if it's like because they were asked to write the song for the film, in their contract they don't actually own the song themselves or something like that. Interesting.
Right?
Curious.
Right? There's a mystery there. We need like an emo mystery machine, and we hop into it and solve
Oh my god. That would be amazing.
like a
That would
really
be so
low
funny.
energy dog.
Really
cat,
low
probably.
energy. A cat, yeah.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There it is.
The only other thing I had on my list was apparently, and this is just because I'm a Disney child, so forgive me, but apparently MCR and Hannah Montana had like a small feud.
Yeah. And so in the charts for the year that the Black Parade was released, they got outperformed by the release of Hannah Montana's album. And naturally, the guys in the band, you know, like the influences they pulled on, you know, Queen, David Bowie, Pink Floyd, this was like a timeless record that they wanted people to hand off to their kids. And then they got outsold by Hannah Montana, you know, like it's disappointing. And I pissed them off. And so, yeah, they were like pretty mad at, I guess, the world about it. Yeah, for sure.
I can understand that, like a giant machine like Disney putting out some like vapid teen pop sensation that like has lyrics that don't really matter or have any substance beating you. I can see how they'd be pissed off.
Yeah. Although I will say, in Hannah Montana's defense, the Climb is a really good song.
Oh,
Miley's
banger.
got pipes.
She's got pipes,
yeah.
right? She's mothered an entire generation. So in hindsight, maybe there is a lot more to Hannah Montana than MCR was willing to accept at the time. I don't know.
They should do a collab and like do a whole lore of it. That would be hilarious.
That would be amazing, actually.
That would be so good. I actually
Wow.
love all of Gerard's collabs, like the Professional Grievers. I don't know if anyone else is like an
I
EDM
love
kid.
that song.
Oh, no.
So good.
It's so good.
Cool. I'll look that up.
Well, Trevor, thank you so much. This was honestly one of the most fun episodes I
You
think
say
we've
that to
had.
everyone, I bet.
No, you're the first guest, so it's impossible.
It's true. Yeah, you're our first guest ever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. So you literally are. I think we all learned something, and if you didn't, fucking go research some more. But this was really cool and insightful, and it kind of makes me just want to learn more about all of this, and it increases my excitement for this tour and everything that's going on. So thank you so much for joining us, and maybe we'll have you back to talk about your layout of the Paramore Mansion.
If you're ever like running low on material. But no, thanks so much for having me on and letting me talk about one of my favorite things. I really appreciate it, and it was a real pleasure.
Before you go, tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So you can find me online using my full government name. Trevor Deley on Instagram, TikTok, and if you're feeling especially charitable at YouTube, I'm trying to branch out into some longer form content doing this kind of analysis, and so keep an eye out on that. But it's all TREVORDELEY on all platforms.
Awesome. We'll throw it up on the screen. But yeah, this has been really insightful. I, as someone who like consumed MCR through their like them being on the radio, essentially, it was really interesting because I knew they were like there was the theatricality of it all, but did really dive into it and be like, oh no, like there's a thought process for all of this and a structure to it. It really made me respect it more as like a piece of art or a collection of art.
That's amazing to hear because, yeah, I think a lot of people miss out on that part of it. And it's really rich. There's a lot to it and a lot of artistic value, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased, but and thank you. Like, again, I'm going to be thinking about, that difference between pop and emo music. Why is one kind of obsessed with reinvention and one resists it? I think that's a lot to think about. So it's really been a pleasure for me too. I appreciate it.
He was really nice.
Yeah, he was a gem. I met him once very quickly at All Your Friends Fest, which we are very acquainted here on the Prima Donnas pod. But I knew just watching his videos and seeing how he speaks that he is knowledgeable, but also cares a lot about the subject. So I thought that he would be the perfect guest to talk about MCR's return ×2, the return of the return, and the big Black Parade tour that they are announcing.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That is the end of season 1. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, we did it. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. I'm super proud of what we've done thus far. But, don't miss us too much because we'll be back in the new year.
We will. We'll have hopefully some new guests. I already have some in mind. And we will have some projects that we're hoping to do. We're hoping to attend some more festivals to get some more festival content. We have so many things up our sleeve that even we don't know about yet. So
it's true. It's true. And you know what? If you enjoyed this interview with Trevor and just talking and listening to hear what he had to say, feel free to give this video a like. Thank you very much.
The social media currency.
Yes. And also give us a subscribe either on Instagram, TikTok, or on YouTube, where you'll get a notification when season 2 starts up. Yeah.
Last little thing before we actually go. Please come see me at Toronto Night Market this week. I will be there Saturday, November 23rd. It is from 5 to 11, I think. And I will have Christmas ornaments. I will have sweaters. I will have everything that you need to give the elder emo in your life the perfect gift.
And I mean, who knows who you might see there? Maybe you'll come across somebody with only, one eye. Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in this season. And we'll see you soon, okay? Bye.
Love you. Bye.